Hey there, comic junkies, Mikey here, and welcome back to March Marvel Madness. So, Captain America Civil War. One of the comic book movie hits from 2016. When I saw this movie for the first time, I had a dang good time. But, upon a second viewing, I didn't. Don't get me wrong, it was still a good movie with great characters, but I can't say I really enjoyed this movie as much as I felt most people did. For a while I just thought I was alone. I watched other reviews and it seemed like they really loved it. It wasn't that I didn't like the film, I just didn't love it as much as everyone else. I actually didn't love it. I just kind of liked it. Then other people started to surface, sharing their thoughts on the film, saying that it might not be as awesome as everyone makes it out to be. This leads me to the topic of today's video. Is Captain America Civil War overrated? The story, I have to admit, is pretty straightforward. The Avengers, minus Iron Man and Vision, are on a mission to stop Crossbones and Hydra from getting their hands on a biological weapon. Things don't go as planned, and a lot of people die as a result. Cap feels remorse for letting things get out of hand, but understands that if they weren't there, then lots more lives would be lost. At the same time, Tony is confronted after giving a presentation by not Mariah Dillard, who is upset that her son is killed in Sokovia while the Avengers were fighting Ultron, placing even more guilt on Tony than he already had. Eventually, the government gets involved. All of the governments, to be exact, and they decide that the Avengers should only act when they deem it necessary. We are eventually introduced to our villain, Baron Zemo, or just Zemo in this movie, who is hunting down a particular mission report from 1991. He busts down Hydra's safe houses until he eventually decides to go after the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes. He frames him in the UN bombing, which results in the death of Black Panther's father, and makes Bucky a wanted man. I guess they just figured he Hulk jumped from Vienna to Bucharest. Anyway, Cap and Falcon going against the Sokovia Accords. Wait, how were the Sokovia Accords in effect already? They were never ratified. Remember? UN? Bombing? Anyway, Cap actually helps keep Bucky from being killed, which is just what Zemo wanted. Zemo breaks into where Bucky's being held, turns Bucky against the Avengers, and escapes. Cap manages to stop Bucky, and when the brainwashing wears off, he and Falcon question Bucky and find out that there are more Winter Soldiers and that Zemo might be trying to release them. Cap recruits some reinforcements such as Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, and Ant-Man. But so does Iron Man, who recruits Black Panther and the amazing fan service man. This eventually leads to the confrontation and spectacle battle of the movie, the airport fight scene. And yeah, I'll admit, it's totally freaking awesome. In my opinion, the Bug People totally steal the show.
Now see, that's a common misconception. Spiders are actually arachnid.
Shut up, I'm praising you! Eventually, Bucky and Cap escape with the help of Black Widow, but not before an accident happened that seriously injures the War Machine. Cap and Bucky trace Zemo to a base in Russia. At the same time, some news leaks that Bucky was actually framed. Iron Man finds out where Cap and Bucky are and joins them with the intent of helping them out. Zemo anticipates this and shows the reason why he was searching for this particular mission report. It was the mission where Bucky killed Tony's parents. This results in the climactic battle between the three of them that Cap eventually wins, quote-unquote, and it seems that the ties are severed. Tony returns home and is helping his friend Rhodey to walk again. Cap sends an apology note to Tony and breaks his friends out of jail, and it seems that everything will eventually be alright. The end. Or is it? Yes, actually it is. It sounds awesome, right? Well, I tried to think so too, but there's just too many glaring issues. For one, no one, absolutely no one, stands up for themselves when Ross walks in and presents them with the Sokovia Accords. They just kind of sit around looking sad. I mean, Tony I understand, but Cap just finished giving a speech to Wanda about how they need to keep doing what they're doing. Instead, they kind of just argue about it amongst themselves. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but why didn't anyone speak up earlier? I call it a nitpick, but I think it's a fair point, especially given what happens later in the story right before the airport fight. Cap tells them exactly what is going on, and no one on Iron Man's side listens. I mean, do they think that Cap would just make all that up? I mean, I know it's supposed to set up the big fight scene, but it just seems so forced. Like, granted, the fight scene is super cool and fun to watch, especially with the number of characters in it, but the reason they are choosing to just pound on each other just doesn't hold up. Which brings me to another issue, the number of characters. Now, don't get me wrong, each performance is great, but the reasoning why some characters are present in the film just seems a little off. I get Cap and obviously Bucky, I get Tony and Natasha and Vision, I even get Rhodes and Sam because of their attachment to their respective friends. But if I'm being honest, Wanda kinda serves her purpose early in the movie and was fine where she was. Spider-Man, as cool and as funny as he was, didn't really bring anything to the movie. And let's be real, Ant-Man was just kind of there. I know, it's supposed to be this huge Marvel event, but in all honesty, that's not the way this film was setting it up. We may not have gotten the airport fight scene, but in the grand scheme, what is the purpose of that fight scene other than to hurt Rhodey? And this brings up another point. Rhodey walking at the end. Granted, I'm glad he's okay, I like this character, but it kind of takes away the impact of him getting hurt in the first place. Plus the lines he says are so great that I can't help but think about how much more powerful those lines would have been if they were delivered from a wheelchair. Let me use another movie from another franchise as an example. Everyone talks about the ending of Empire Strikes Back, not only because it was a cliffhanger, but because it gave a sense of loss and that everything might not be okay. If any movie in the MCU deserved that kind of ending, it was this one. Especially if we're going to have all of these characters, we need to feel the weight of what happened in this film, especially after that last fight scene. Now, does that mean the movie sucked? Far from it. Even though some of the characters were unnecessary, each one was pretty awesome. The main characters in this movie really got to shine. Their motivations were clear to the point where even I couldn't choose a side at the end. I saw both of their stances so clear that if I were a member of the Avengers, I may have just chosen the retirement option. I know the villain gets a bad rap, but I have to admit, he was one of the best ones they've had so far. He has clear motivations, he improvises when things don't go his way, and he just has a menacing presence. He wasn't just some mastermind pulling all the strings. He was just a guy with resources taking chances, and it just so happens that some of them worked out. Even though I was a little disappointed with Spidey in this movie, it wasn't because of his performance. I just wanted his presence to mean more. He may have just been fan service, but he was still cool. And now his newest movie has an interesting direction to follow. So, is Captain America Civil War overrated? Kind of, sort of, but not by much. It's still a good movie, it's just not the masterpiece that it's made out to be. It happens to be one of the best comic book movies of that year, but is that really saying a lot? Hey, let's be honest, there weren't a lot of comic book movies in the win column in 2016. To me, it's a contrast kind of thing, kind of like food. If you haven't had a good home-cooked meal in a long time, and you've just been eating scraps, which, trust me, I get being a college student, the next meal you have could seem like the best you've ever had, even if the food isn't all that great. If you love this movie, I understand. If you disliked it, I understand. For me, if I were grading it, I'd probably give it a solid B. It's not the greatest, but I still enjoyed it, and if anything, it gets me excited for what's to come next.